Every year, the world consumes over 2.5 million tons of Mexican avocados. It is a breakfast staple, a health trend, and a $2.4 billion export machine. And right now, it is the reason people are being murdered. In the hills of Michoacan, Mexico's so-called green gold has triggered a war between the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel, not over cocaine or fentanyl, but over fruit. 9,000 households have been displaced. 12% of orchards have been abandoned. Billions of dollars are laundered through the very supply chain that stocks your local grocery store. But why are cartels fighting over avocados? The answer begins with a number most people never see. Mexico's avocado industry operates on a scale that dwarfs most other agricultural exports in Latin America. Each year, the country produces over 2.5 million metric tons of avocados, enough to account for nearly a third of the world's total supply. At the heart of this surge is Michoacan, a region whose orchards yield about 80% of Mexico's harvest and have become the engine behind an export machine worth more than $2.4 billion annually. The United States is by far the largest customer, absorbing over 80% of these exports, with Europe and Japan following as rapidly growing markets. The numbers behind this trade are staggering. In 2023, Mexico shipped more than 1.4 million metric tons of fresh avocados abroad, a 17% jump from the previous year. Even as the export value fluctuated, falling slightly to $2.7 billion due to currency shifts, the volume continued to climb, reflecting a demand that shows no sign of slowing. The average farm gate price for export-grade Hass avocados in Michoacan hovers between 40 and 60 pesos per kilogram, or about $2.30 to $3.45 per kilogram. For a mid-sized orchard, a single harvest can generate over $2 million in cash revenue, an economic force that shapes the lives of tens of thousands of families and workers across the region. This boom is driven by more than just breakfast trends and social media recipes. United States consumers alone eat more than 2 million tons of avocados each year, fueled by health marketing campaigns and a near-constant demand for guacamole. Europe's appetite is rising too, with Spain and the Netherlands now serving as key entry points for Mexican fruit. Japan's premium market values late season produce for its quality and freshness. Mexico's harvest calendar fills a critical supply gap during the Northern Hemisphere winter, giving growers a reliable, high-value window to move their product. Behind the scenes, this steady demand creates predictable, high-volume cash flows that ripple from rural Michoacan to supermarket shelves in Los Angeles, Madrid, and Tokyo. The economic incentives are clear. Avocados are not just a fruit, but a commodity whose value now rivals that of gold in some communities. The sheer volume of cash moving through the supply chain makes the sector a magnet for anyone seeking profit, whether through legitimate business or criminal enterprise. As the world's appetite for avocados grows, so does the pressure on those who produce them, setting the stage for the power struggles and violence that have come to define the so-called green gold. In Michoacan, the landscape is dominated by the steady rhythm of avocado harvests. This state is not just a major producer. It is the undisputed epicenter of the world's avocado trade. Nearly 4 out of every 5 avocados grown in Mexico come from Michoacan's orchards. The region's volcanic soil and mild climate create ideal growing conditions, supporting a dense patchwork of small family farms and sprawling commercial estates. Municipalities like Tancitaro, Uruapan, and Pátzcuaro have become synonymous with Hass avocados, the variety that fills supermarket shelves across the United States, Europe, and Japan. This geographic concentration has turned Michoacán into what locals call the avocado capital of the world. The economic activity is relentless. From November through June, trucks loaded with freshly picked fruit stream out of the highlands, bound for packing houses and export terminals. The seasonal cycle is so reliable that international buyers plan their contracts around Michoacán's harvest calendar. For growers, this predictability translates into regular, high-volume cash flows. A single mid-sized orchard can generate millions of dollars in revenue during a good season, with farm gate prices often outpacing those of traditional crops like corn or beans. But the wealth is not evenly spread. Large landholders and vertically integrated agribusinesses capture the lion's share of profits, while the majority of Michoacán's 35,000 avocado growers work small plots, sometimes less than 5 hectares. Many rely on family labor and informal credit, making them especially vulnerable to economic shocks and outside pressure. The high value of each harvest, combined with the need for cash-based transactions, creates a tempting target for criminal groups seeking to tap into what locals call green gold. Packing houses and cold storage facilities cluster around key highways and towns, forming the backbone of a supply chain that can move hundreds of thousands of tons of fruit each year. This infrastructure has helped Michoacán maintain its dominance even as other Mexican states and countries try to enter the market. The region's orchards supply avocados when no other major producer can, filling the winter gap in the global market. This seasonal advantage locks in demand from the world's largest importers, ensuring that money continues to flow into the state year after year. Yet the same factors that have made Michoacán prosperous have also exposed it to risk. The concentration of wealth, the predictability of cash cycles, and the region's fragmented land ownership have made it uniquely susceptible to extortion, land grabs, and criminal infiltration. In Michoacán, avocados are not just a fruit, they are a currency, a bargaining chip, and increasingly a source of both pride and fear for the communities that depend on them. Cartel involvement in the avocado trade begins with a simple but powerful tool, the protection tax, known locally as piso. This term, once reserved for the world of drug routes and illicit enterprises, now shapes daily life for thousands of Michoacán's avocado growers. Piso is not a hidden fee or a one-time shakedown. It is a systematic levy, extracted as a standing cost of doing business. For most producers, this means surrendering a fixed percentage, typically 3 to 5%, of their gross sales, season after season. The calculation is straightforward. If a mid-sized orchard brings in $2 million in a good year, up to $100,000 of that revenue is handed over in cash to cartel collectors. Sometimes the demand is even higher, reaching as much as 10% in contested zones or during periods of heightened violence. Payment is not optional. The piso is enforced through an informal but deeply entrenched network of collectors, accountants, and enforcers aligned with the Jalisco, New Generation Cartel, and the Sinaloa Cartel. Each group claims its own territory, sometimes carving up neighboring orchards, highways, or even entire municipalities. Growers who refuse or fall behind on payments face a menu of threats, including crop theft, arson, kidnapping, or worse. In many cases, farmers are forced to sign protection contracts that bind them to exclusive deals with cartel-approved packing houses and distributors. This arrangement ensures the tax is collected before the fruit even leaves the region. The piso model is designed for efficiency and scale. Rather than targeting only the wealthiest landowners, cartels cast a wide net, extracting smaller percentages from thousands of smallholders. Even a modest family plot of just a few hectares can yield enough to make regular payments, especially when pooled across entire valleys. Cartel accountants, known as contadores, keep detailed ledgers tracking every kilogram harvested, every truck loaded, and every peso owed. The sums add up quickly. According to field interviews and government estimates, extortion from avocado producers generates hundreds of millions of dollars each year, money that flows directly into cartel coffers. This steady stream of cash does more than line the pockets of criminal bosses. Peso revenue funds the purchase of weapons, the bribery of local officials, and the maintenance of armed patrols along critical highways. It also supports the laundering of illicit proceeds through the legitimate avocado supply chain, blending criminal profits with legal trade. In Michoacán, the humble avocado has become a vehicle for organized crime, its value leveraged at every step. The peso is not just a tax. It is the price of survival in a market where the line between legal commerce and criminal enterprise has all but disappeared. Armed checkpoints appear without warning on the winding rural roads of Michoacán. Pickup trucks block the path, manned by masked men with radios and assault rifles. These are not police or military. These are cartel enforcers, carrying out a system of control that has become routine across the avocado belt. Every truck loaded with fruit, every farm worker heading to market, is stopped and questioned. Identification is checked, invoices scrutinized, and most importantly, payment is demanded. The checkpoint is both a toll booth and a threat. Pay the protection tax, or the harvest doesn't move. Growers describe these encounters as tense and unavoidable. Refusing to pay, or even hesitating, can mean losing an entire crop. In some cases, the fruit is seized on the spot. In others, drivers are forced to turn back, their produce left to spoil. The checkpoints are not random. They are mapped and managed by the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel, each staking out their own territory. Armed patrols keep watch over the main access roads to towns like Tancitaro and Uruapan, ensuring that only cartel-approved shipments make it through. But the checkpoint is only the first layer of coercion. Many growers are required to sign exclusive contracts with cartel-sanctioned distributors. These so-called protection agreements lock farmers into selling their entire harvest through specific packing houses, often at prices set by cartel middlemen. The arrangement guarantees that the peso, the protection tax, can be collected before a single avocado leaves the region. It also prevents farmers from seeking better deals or exporting independently, tightening the cartel's grip on every step of the supply chain. The threat of violence hangs over every transaction. Farmers who resist or attempt to bypass the system face more than just financial loss. Reports of arson, kidnapping, and even murder circulate through the community, serving as stark warnings. Orchards have been burned as punishment for defiance. In extreme cases, families have been forced to abandon their land altogether. The presence of these checkpoints and the forced contracts that follow reveal how the avocado's journey from farm to table begins under the shadow of armed control. The fruit's value, its status as green gold, has turned these rural roads into corridors of fear, where the price of doing business is set not by the market, but by the men with guns. Beneath the headlines about billion-dollar exports and cartel shootouts lies an intricate web of power known locally as the Avocado Mafia. This is not a single organization, but a layered network that blends criminal muscle with business acumen. At the core of this system are local capos, regional bosses who operate under the protection or franchise of larger cartels like the Jalisco New Generation Cartel or the Sinaloa Cartel. These capos rarely appear in the news, but they shape daily life in Michoacán's avocado heartland. Their authority stretches over specific valleys, towns, or clusters of orchards, and their job is to ensure the flow of piso, the protection tax, never falters. Each capo oversees a team that mirrors a legitimate agricultural business, but with its own chain of command. The most trusted lieutenants are the contadores, or cartel accountants. These individuals are not enforcers with guns. They are skilled bookkeepers, trained to track every kilogram of harvested fruit, every truck that leaves a packing house, and every peso that changes hands. Contadores keep handwritten ledgers and encrypted spreadsheets, cross-referencing grower lists with shipment manifests and payment schedules. Their records ensure that no producer, from the smallest family plot to the largest commercial farm, escapes the tax net. In some cases, contadores even issue informal receipts or keep logs that are later used to settle disputes between rival networks. The daily operations of the avocado mafia depend on a hybrid model, part criminal enterprise, part local business coalition. Capos often maintain relationships with municipal officials, police commanders, and legitimate packers. They negotiate exclusive contracts, set floor prices, and determine which packing houses are approved for export. In return, they guarantee that shipments will not be delayed or attacked on the road. For growers, the choice is stark. Pay the prescribed percentage, usually 3 to 5% of gross sales, or risk violence and economic ruin. The structure is designed for resilience. If a capo is arrested or killed, a successor steps in, often from the same community or even the same extended family. The contadores remain in place, ensuring continuity of payments and minimizing disruption. This decentralized setup allows the avocado mafia to weather government crackdowns and internal cartel feuds, keeping the flow of green gold uninterrupted. The dual function of this network is unmistakable. On one hand, it extracts steady revenue from the legal avocado trade, funneling millions of dollars each season into cartel coffers. On the other, it serves as an operational hub, funding weapons, bribing officials, and laundering money through legitimate export channels. The avocado mafia's reach extends from the orchards of Michoacán to the docks at Lázaro Cárdenas, and ultimately to supermarket shelves around the world. For local communities, this means living under a shadow economy, where every harvest is counted, every peso is monitored, and every act of resistance carries a price. At the heart of Michoacán's avocado trade sits a network of packing houses, industrial bottlenecks, where fruit, cash, and criminal power converge. Among these, facilities like the one known locally as Agro-Export SA have become archetypes of how cartels capture both infrastructure and profit. Packing houses are not just warehouses, they are the gatekeepers for export. Every truckload of avocados destined for the United States, Europe, or Japan must pass through their doors for washing, grading, and certification. This is where the value of green gold, the soul, is physically consolidated, and it is here that the mechanics of avocado cartelism become most visible. Ownership records for several major packing houses in Tancítaro and Uruapan reveal a pattern of hidden shareholders and front companies. Investigations by Mexican authorities and U.S. Customs have linked at least 12 facilities, including Agro-Export SA, to family members or associates of cartel leaders. In 2020, federal agents raided a Tancítaro packing house tied to the Jalisco New Generation cartel, seizing over 200 tons of fruit, along with weapons and cash boxes holding nearly $1 million. The facility's books showed payments to shell companies and inflated invoices for premium avocados, classic hallmarks of money laundering. The process is systematic. Growers, already pressed by peso collectors, are often required to deliver their harvests to cartel-approved packers. These facilities extract a second layer of profit, taking a cut from every kilo before the fruit leaves for export. Cartel accountants, known as contadores, track shipments, reconcile cash flows, and ensure that the protection tax is embedded in every transaction. Packing house managers, under threat or in collusion, facilitate these flows by falsifying shipping documents, over-invoicing premium shipments, or mixing illicit cash with legitimate export proceeds. For small and mid-sized growers, the packing house is a choke point with no alternative. Refusing to use a cartel-linked facility can mean exclusion from the export market or even physical retaliation. Exclusive contracts are common. Some farmers report being forced to sign away their harvests for below market prices, with the difference pocketed by cartel intermediaries. The structure is so entrenched that even international buyers struggle to trace the true origin of their avocados. The control of packing houses allows cartels to blend criminal proceeds with legitimate trade, moving laundered money across borders with each shipment. It also gives them leverage over every step of the supply chain, from the orchard gate to the supermarket shelf. The physical infrastructure of the avocado industry, cold storage, grading lines, export terminals, has become a battlefield in its own right. Here, the fight over green gold is not just about extortion at the farm, but about who controls the very machinery that moves billions of dollars in fruit out of Michoacan and into the hands of consumers worldwide. The cost of Mexico's avocado boom is measured not only in dollars, but in lost homes and empty fields. In Michoacan, satellite images reveal a stark pattern: rows of trees left untended, their fruit rotting on the ground. According to recent analysis, about 12% of the region's avocado orchards, roughly 150 square kilometers, have been abandoned since 2020. This is not the result of drought or disease. It is the outcome of violence and intimidation, a landscape scarred by the advance of the so-called avocado mafia. The mechanics of displacement are both systematic and personal. Cartel enforcers, often working under the banners of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel or the Sinaloa Cartel, arrive with demands for protection payments. Growers who resist face escalating threats. First a warning, then sabotage, and in many cases, outright violence. Orchards are burned as punishment. Family members are kidnapped or forced to sign away land at a fraction of its value. The choice is stark: pay the tax, abandon the farm, or risk everything. The human toll is visible in the numbers. NGOs tracking the crisis report that around 9,000 households, about 45,000 people, have fled Michoacan's avocado belt in the last 3 years. Some move to nearby towns, others cross into the United States, but almost all leave behind land that once anchored generations. Testimonies collected by field workers echo a common refrain: "We couldn't pay what they asked. They threatened my children. We left with what we could carry." For those who remain, daily life is shaped by fear and uncertainty. Farmers who once saw avocados as a path out of poverty now face a different calculation: whether the next harvest will bring prosperity or another visit from armed men. The loss ripples outward. Abandoned orchards mean lost wages for pickers and packers, shuttered businesses in market towns, and shrinking school enrollments as families scatter. The economic impact is severe. With each hectare left untended, communities lose not only income, but a sense of security and future. Satellite data and on-the-ground surveys confirm the scale of the crisis. Where Michoacan was once defined by the steady hum of harvests, entire stretches now stand silent. The green gold that fueled hope has become a source of exile, its promise eclipsed by the reality of forced migration and fractured lives. In the shadow of cartel control, the humble avocado carries a price measured not just in pesos, but in uprooted families and abandoned dreams. Federal intervention in Michoacan's Avocado belt arrives with unmistakable force. In 2022, the Secretariat of National Defense authorized the deployment of 2,500 soldiers and 1,200 National Guard members to the region's most embattled municipalities. Their orders were to secure highways, dismantle illegal checkpoints, and shield growers from extortion and violence. Army convoys roll through Uruapan and Tancitaro, while National Guard units set up outposts near packing houses. Where cartel lookouts once manned roadblocks, uniformed troops and military vehicles now stand, at least for a while. Yet the green gold economy proves stubborn. Security sweeps yield quick results. Reported attacks drop, weapons are seized, arrests are made. Operation Green Shield in October 2021 led to the confiscation of 30 tons of stolen avocados and the detention of 45 people linked to extortion. But these gains are fleeting. Cartel networks adapt, shifting to backroads or using intermediaries to collect protection money. The military presence, however imposing, is always temporary. Once patrols move on, old patterns return. The justice system cannot keep pace. Fewer than 15% of organized crime cases tied to avocado extortion end in conviction, according to the Fiscalia General de la República. The reasons are clear: witness intimidation, judicial backlog, and constant threats. Over 60% of victims withdraw testimony after being threatened or attacked. Michoacan's courts face more than 1,200 cases a year, but lack enough specialized judges. Trials drag on for years. Many never reach a verdict. Internal audits reveal that nearly 1 in 12 prosecutors has had undisclosed contact with businesses linked to cartel finance, further blurring the line between law enforcement and criminal enterprise. For small growers, these gaps are not statistics. They are lived experience. In 2022, 42% of smallholders reported losses over $10,000 from extortion, theft, or forced land abandonment. Some families flee to cities or cross into the United States, seeking safety far from the orchards that once promised stability. Others, with no alternative, make uneasy deals with cartel middlemen, becoming reluctant cogs in the very machinery that threatens them. Despite the show of force, the core incentives remain. The high cash flow of the avocado trade, the ease of laundering money through exports, and persistent rural poverty keep criminal control rooted. Military deployments and arrests disrupt cartel operations briefly, but the machinery of extortion and money laundering endures. The state's visible response stands in stark contrast to its limited reach, exposing a justice gap cartels exploit to keep the green gold flowing. Money laundering in the avocado trade begins with a simple manipulation of paperwork, but the process quickly grows complex. At the farm gate, growers receive payments in cash or through informal accounts, a system that keeps much of the industry off the books. From there, the fruit and the money both pass through cartel-linked packing houses, where the first layer of financial engineering takes place. Here, accountants inflate invoices, listing export shipments as higher value than the actual price paid to farmers. Sometimes shipments are labeled premium or organic, justifying extra fees and masking the true volume or quality of the fruit. These inflated invoices are not just for show. They allow cartel-controlled exporters to claim larger payments from foreign buyers, often through front companies set up in the United States, Europe, or offshore tax havens. The difference between the declared price and the real value is quietly siphoned into accounts held by shell companies, entities that exist on paper but have no real business operations. Funds are then moved again, sometimes through a network of additional offshore accounts, or converted into cryptocurrencies, making the money nearly impossible to trace. The over-invoicing pipeline serves several purposes. First, it integrates illicit cash from extortion and drug proceeds into the legitimate financial system by blending it with the legal profits from avocado sales. Second, it provides a channel for moving large sums abroad without raising suspicion, as the paperwork appears to match the scale of the booming export market. Third, it creates a financial cushion for cartels, allowing them to fund weapons purchases, pay bribes, and reinvest in land or logistics, all under the cover of normal business activity. Offshore accounts and shell exporters play a key role in this architecture. By routing payments through jurisdictions with weak oversight, cartels can obscure the origin and destination of funds. In some cases, the same company will appear as both buyer and seller on different documents, creating a closed loop that hides the true flow of money. Regulators and law enforcement face an uphill battle, as the sheer volume of legitimate trade provides cover for a much smaller stream of illicit capital. Invoice manipulation is not unique to avocados, but the scale and speed of the trade make it especially effective. Each container shipped out of Michoacan represents not just a load of fruit, but a potential vehicle for laundering criminal profits. As global demand for avocados grows, so does the sophistication of the schemes used to hide the proceeds of violence and extortion. The financial architecture behind Mexico's green gold is as carefully cultivated as the orchards themselves, designed to move money invisibly from rural roads to offshore banks. At the port of Lázaro Cárdenas, the full scale of the avocado cartel nexus is laid bare. In February 2023, federal authorities executed a coordinated raid on a cargo terminal operated by a company with deep roots in Michoacan's export trade. What they found was staggering. Over $12 million in cash hidden in shipping containers and office vaults, alongside a trail of documents linking the port's logistics chain to both avocado shipments and narcotics routes. This was not a haul from a clandestine drug lab, but from the heart of Mexico's legitimate export infrastructure. The seizure report read like a ledger for a multinational operation. Customs officials logged daily truck manifests showing avocados moving out of Michoacan's highlands, bound for buyers in the United States and Europe. Yet the same containers, often declared as carrying only fruit, were flagged in intelligence briefings for overlapping with established drug corridors. GPS records revealed that at least 20 trucks a day passed through the terminal, each potentially carrying both green gold and illicit cargo. The cash, stacked in neat bundles, bore bank stamps from both Mexican and U.S. financial institutions, a clear indication that the proceeds of legal trade and criminal activity were being blended at the highest levels. The port's operator, a seasoned logistics manager with decades in the business, became the face of a new archetype. Not the cartel enforcer, but the professional who straddles the line between commerce and complicity. Under questioning, he produced invoices for premium Hass avocados, certified for export, alongside contracts for cold storage and freight forwarding. But investigators also uncovered a parallel set of books, handwritten ledgers tracking off-the-record payments, coded transfers, and shipments labeled as special handling. Forensic accountants traced the money's path from the orchards of Michoacan to offshore accounts in Panama and the Cayman Islands. The mechanism was simple but effective: over-invoicing shipments, inflating the declared value of each container, and funneling the surplus abroad under the guise of legitimate export revenue. In some cases, the same company appeared as both buyer and seller on different sides of the transaction, creating a closed loop that masked the true flow of funds. The Lázaro Cárdenas seizure offered conclusive proof of what many had suspected. The avocado trade is not just a local cash crop, but a transnational financial engine for organized crime. The port's daily operations, routine on the surface, enabled cartels to move millions in laundered money across borders, financing weapons, bribing officials, and sustaining the drug routes that run parallel to the fruit's journey north. With the United States market consuming more than 4 out of every 5 Mexican avocados, the demand for green gold feeds directly into the machinery of cartel finance. This event did not end the flow of avocados, nor did it dismantle the networks behind them, but it stripped away any illusion that the industry's problems begin and end in the orchards. At Lázaro Cárdenas, the boundaries between legal trade and criminal enterprise dissolve, revealing a supply chain where every box of fruit can carry both economic opportunity and the shadow of violence. Today, Michoacan's green gold still links kitchen tables worldwide to fields controlled by the avocado mafia. As global demand climbs, avocado cartelism entrenches violence and corruption, leaving local families trapped between extortion and abandonment. The same trade that funds weapons and bribes also launders profits across borders, blurring legal and illegal economies. Every avocado carries a hidden cost, and as long as the appetite grows, so does the struggle for power behind each harvest. Join the conversation below.